A haunting scene from a dark night in 1953. A lone pilot races towards the unknown. The skies over North America are tense. This is the story of how he chased a UFO on radar, then vanished without a trace. It was November over Lake Superior. Felix and his radar operator were racing through the sky. The target they locked onto the radar was out there somewhere. All Felix knew was that it was inside a restricted zone. It didn't respond to radio calls. The mission was simple. Identify the target, whatever it was. They needed to know exactly what it was doing in restricted airspace. As Felix got closer, he finally locked the target visually. Just as radar had predicted, it was real. It was metallic. It was unlike any aircraft he'd ever seen before. But there was no cockpit, there was no markings. And then it turned. The target turned, and Felix realized he had to act quickly. He wanted to get close enough to see, to try and get a positive ID on the object. Suddenly, the target accelerated faster than he could react. Then it disappeared off his radar. When the target went dark, Felix made a critical decision. He pushed his jet to the max and followed. Moments later, he saw the target again. It was descending, banking away to the right of him. He watched it go down. He watched it disappear into the darkness of the night. And as he reached the spot where he last saw the craft, he vanished as well. It's unclear how long Felix was in the air that night. We don't know the full duration of his flight. What we do know is that the last contact he had with ground control was when he said, "I'm closing in fast." Then radio silence. His voice cut out abruptly. If you've watched our previous videos, you know the rules. We don't chase UFOs, we don't fly into the unknown. But what about when duty calls? When our duty is to protect, to explore, to discover? Do we have the right to enter the unknown? In 1953 it was different. The era of UFO exploration hadn't yet taken hold. Flying into the unknown meant one thing. You weren't coming back. But Felix did. He left a trail behind. In fact, he left two. His physical trail, the path his jet took across the sky, and his electronic trail, the blip on the radar. In the final moments of his flight, Felix and the UFO he was chasing left the radar. It was an incredible event. Two blips on the screen showing the pilot and his target suddenly becoming one, disappearing instantly. It was hard to imagine, even more difficult to believe. But the radar operator that night wasn't imagining things. Their readings were correct. The machines confirmed what they saw. The two blips merged into one. Then they vanished. So what happened next? Where did they go? Were they still out there somewhere, or was the answer written in the stars? This is what happened next. The military mobilized immediately. The Air Force scrambled everything they had in the area. Helicopters, jets, and ships were deployed to comb the area where the two crafts disappeared. Search and rescue teams started combing the shores, the waves, and the airspace. But they didn't have much to go on. No emergency signal, no known direction. All they had was radar data. And the radar data was incomplete. The target had come from the west. That much was clear. But its origins were a mystery. The U.S. Air Force later reported that the radar operator believed the object may have been Canadian. Perhaps it was a civil aircraft that had strayed too far. Or maybe it was a Canadian military craft conducting an unauthorized test flight. Anything was possible. The truth was, no one knew. But the Canadians were puzzled, too. No aircraft had left Canada that evening. No civilian or military plane had gone missing. Nobody had strayed. The radar was tracking a phantom. As days passed without a lead, the scope of the search expanded. Other military bases joined the hunt. Crews flew day and night, but the only thing they found were rumors. Fishermen spoke of seeing bright lights over the lake, of hearing strange noises, but that was it. With no leads and no bodies, the search slowly wound down, and with it, the belief that Felix and his target would be found. What is the hardest thing you've ever done? For Felix, it was flying into the unknown, chasing a phantom that defied explanation. And for his radar operator, it was sitting in the dark, watching the blips appear, merge, and disappear. When the target appeared on their radar, he knew his job was to guide Felix. But when it merged with the pilot, his role changed. He became the lookout. All he could do was watch the radar and wait for Felix to return. But as the minutes ticked by, it was clear that something was wrong. He knew Felix had a target, some kind of object that shouldn't have been there. He watched as Felix closed in. He listened as his voice crackled over the radio, excited to be on the verge of a discovery. Then his radio went silent. He watched the blip on the radar vanish. Knowing Felix was in trouble, he sounded the alarm. He tried to contact other pilots, but no one was close enough to help. He was alone in the tower that night, watching as the minutes turned to hours and hope turned to despair. For him, the worst part was the silence, the absence of sound. Felix should have reported his findings. He should have returned to base. He should have landed in debris. But there was nothing. No transmissions, no calls, no sign of life. After the search was called off, he packed his things and went home. The military didn't want to talk about what had happened, but as he drove away, he couldn't stop thinking about the pilot and the object. What had they encountered? What had caused them to vanish? And most importantly, why? Why did the military cover it up? These are the questions that haunted him, the same questions that still plague our understanding of the universe. On the surface, the official story makes sense. Felix's jet was lost in the dark depths of Lake Superior. Maybe he got lost while chasing a storm cell, or perhaps his instruments failed and he lost control. Those are logical explanations. Accidents happen. Jets go down. Sometimes there's no way to recover them. But this case was different. The radar blips didn't lie. Felix didn't vanish into thin air. He went into the unknown and he didn't come back. What happens when someone disappears in the sky? Who gets their story? The media, the experts, the conspiracy theorists. And what if no one wants to tell the truth? Felix's wife was desperate for answers. She contacted the media, begged them to investigate. She even offered a reward for any information leading to the recovery of her husband's remains. But no one came forward. The military kept secret the details of his flight. They didn't release the radar data, they didn't disclose his route, they didn't even confirm his body was in the lake. And so the story died. The media moved on. The conspiracy theorists had new targets, but she was left behind with her questions. This is the story of how Felix and his target vanished, but it's also the story of how the world reacted. There are three versions of the story: the official, the conspiratorial, and the personal, and none of them are complete. The official story claims Felix crashed. He became disoriented. He descended into the lake and exploded on impact. But there's no wreckage, no evidence of a crash. If Felix hit the water at high speed, something would have surfaced. The conspiratorial version claims he was the victim of a secret government program, a test flight gone wrong, a hidden experiment that failed. But there's no proof of a cover-up, no confirmation of a project. And the personal version is the saddest. Felix was flying that night. He chased a UFO and he vanished. Today, the world is obsessed with UFO. Pilots talk about them openly. Experts debate their existence. The government investigates unidentified objects. But back in 1953, the world was different. No one understood what he was facing that night. No one knew the risks he took, and no one cared about the truth. This is the story of Felix Moncla, the pilot who chased a UFO on radar then vanished without a trace. It's a chilling reminder of the power of the unknown, the grip of fear and the allure of the unexplained. As we look to the stars and search for life beyond our world, let's remember the brave souls who dared to explore the darkness of our own skies. If you're fascinated by this case, we've got more where that came from. Check out our other videos for more.